Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there, and welcome to this very special episode of the Blood Brothers podcast, filmed at the Sheraton Hotel in Damascus, Syria, with your host, Dilly Hussain. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to remind all the avid podcast listeners that you can find this episode and all 4 seasons on all the major audio platforms. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be cheeky. Do remember to click subscribe to the Five Pillars YouTube channel. Today's guest requires no introduction. A dear brother and friend of mine. That's none other than the humanitarian aid worker and political activist, Tauqir Tox Sharif. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, I must say that is professional, bro. First time, amazing introduction.
I feel like you're playing on what happened before we press start.
Really, wallahi, that was spot on, bro.
Welcome to the show, bro.
Jazakallah, bro. It's been a long time coming, I think.
Yeah, well, the timing's perfect.
Yeah.
Syria's liberated.
Qadr, Qadr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes everything happen at the perfectly appointed right time.
Alhamdulillah. We'll be seeing loads of journalists from around the world. Europe, South America. There's a buzz in the air. Why do you think there's so many journalists? Because we've been walking around Damascus and we're seeing them literally everywhere. Did you ever think that this situation was going to happen 13 years later?
In terms of the way things fell in this kind of capitulation at this time, if I'm honest, no. Across the free territories, you could say there was a sense of kind of, disenchantment. People were disgruntled, people, were getting on with life, but generally not happy being contained and bottled up in this part of the north. Job opportunities not there, life's difficult, people living in refugee camps. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes things in an instant, and then I never saw, a situation in the 13 years where literally every single person was supporting the fight. Everyone. Barbers, cleaners, tribes, everyone just put their whatever they were doing on hold and to the front lines. We're going to fight. And that's something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was like, seeing this kind of impetus, this push from everybody. I think people sensed that when they saw from the initial attack that the regime is weak, they said it's now or never and we've got to push for this.
Do you think it was a case of they smelt blood? Because initially it was just supposed to be Halep, right?
Yeah.
And then they just came Halep, then it was Hama, Homs, and then it came down from the south, from Dara, and literally within 12 days, pretty much the entire regime fell.
Yeah, it became infectious. People started seeing other people liberating their towns, and they were like, why can't we jump into this? And so, yeah, some of it was manufactured by HTS, and they did, a lot of, you could say, preparation and work. So they got the ball rolling. But definitely, what I don't think they factored for was the push from everybody. People were itching. 5 years, no one's fighting. 5 years, everyone's in this difficult situation. It was just an explosion. It was like thousands of people, hundreds and thousands of people running to the battlefield. I don't think the regime was ready for it. I don't think anybody was ready for it. And now this reaction of the whole world being here and coming here, I think that's the enchantment of Bilad al-Sham. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. That's the reason why we're all here. And to be sitting here in Damascus is a dream, bro. I think even till now, I still feel like I'm in a dream. Like literally for the last 12 days, maybe longer, I've hardly been at home. I've been on the go. I've been doing I'm on limited sleep. I love it, bro. I love it.
But people are waiting for the road trip documentary that we both did, right?
Yeah.
That was mad. About 850 kilometers in 23 and a half hours.
Yeah, along with snipers on the roads, along with random Syrian YouTubers.
Side missions.
Side quests, yeah.
Syrians singing under the bridge. Random Turkish hammam.
I don't know how good my filming and editing is going to be because I haven't really been vlogging for a while, but inshallah, I hope people benefit and enjoy it. We enjoyed it. That's the most important thing, right?
That's for sure. Let's talk about the man himself, who's perhaps the most sought after man right now in terms of media interest. Do you find it a bit I don't know, I don't even know what the word is. There seems to be this kind of softening, even from a hostile Western media, about presenting Ahmad al-Shara, Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, as this kind of moderate jihadist. That's literally like the Western media is presenting him as such.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
He's the new poster boy for jihad now, isn't it? I mean,
You got Christian Syrian girls oozing over him, and we've seen it on the streets of Damascus. Foreign fighters are being approached by everyone, sweethearts being given roses.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely a good PR machine there.
Yeah.
They've done well to rebrand him. I mean, I'm not one to be a hater, bro. I mean, he's done certain things that have merited, that kind of attention. Mujahideen have become, sexy. They've become popular.
Yeah, I don't think we can underplay that.
We can't underplay it because it's unreal. It's unreal.
Like, brothers and sisters, I'm being serious. I've been walking around Damascus and on the other cities and towns. The fighters are being approached by so many women. Many of them are not Muslim.
I bet some of them even probably think you're a fighter. They think you're HTS. And same as me, when I walk in places, they're like,
So anyone that's foreign,
anyone that looks a bit Muslim and got a beard and that, they're getting all that attention, which,
Yeah. Now, look, I do want to remind our viewers and listeners that Hayat Tahrir Sham is a proscribed terrorist organisation under the UK. And the press conference, private closed meeting we had today was with many Western media outlets. And it just seems casual because if you go by that policy, just on the principle of a leader of a proscribed group, let alone someone who has a 10 million bounty on their head, is casually just speaking to Wall Street journalists. The lights have just gone off, brothers and sisters. Hopefully it'll come back on.
So the lights went off, the lights are back on now. But I think it's important for people to see this kind of stuff because not everything is, hunky-dory, rosy-posy here in Syria. There's still remnants of Bashar's regime still here. And that's going to take time to dismantle. Even though he's gone, this sinister, evil regime is still here. And Sednaya prison was a proof of that. Mm-hmm. Sednaya was the infamous prison everybody was going to film and see, but there's many prisons here in Damascus that are still unknown. They haven't been found. And so that's a dark truth. And there's going to be many like that. So I think, alhamdulillah, there's positives here, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Are you saying that there's many areas that haven't been swept from a security perspective?
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday, some brothers were killed in the Qardaha, Latkiya area. 3 killed, 14 injured. There's certain areas that are still no-go zones.
Like
you've got 2 Kurdish areas, Sheikh Maqsood, Ashrafiyya in the north of Aleppo city.
Is that where we took a detour?
That's where we took a detour because, families had been sniped. The bodies were still literally on the roundabout up until now. It's been maybe a week and there's decomposing bodies on that roundabout that no one can get. So, there's still, it looks like on the outside that, everything is great. Yeah, there's, alhamdulillah, we're here in Damascus. That's amazing. But I think my take on this current situation is that Idlib and the northern areas was a very small area. The amount of people that, the resistance were looking after was minuscule in comparison to what they have now. And generally, people are really happy. From what I see, of course, it's a popular revolution. You can see, you've seen yourself, the people singing. And,
every city, every town.
So that's amazing. But there's a hell of a lot of work to be done.
And we'll get to that. Do Syrians believe that there could have been a foreign hand? Because outside of Syria, people are questioning things happen so quick. Oil, a part of an oil in Deir ez-Zor has been passed over to the transitional government, ultimately HTS.
Yeah.
There's just there's a lot of normalization happening very quick. And people outside, understandably, are questioning the speed at which things are happening, the normalization process. We know that David Lammy, the foreign minister of the UK, has said that, yes, there's talks open with us, the Syrian rebels. We know that other foreign diplomats right now, as we speak, have got line of comms open with an organization that's prescribed by the US, the UK, the UN. Do Syrians believe that there could be an outside influence in what happened in 12 days?
I think there's layers to it, right? So the first layer is the general people are just really happy and overjoyed that Bashar al-Assad, the Assad family, is gone. Because of how deeply entrenched, how the iron fist was, all the different systems that were used to suppress people, the sectarianism. I mean, there's so much you can go into just on that level.
That's one layer.
So
What's the next layer?
That's one layer. And so for the ordinary Syrian people, the fact that that hand has been removed, or that dagger has been removed from, basically their neck, that's a big relief. You can feel that in most people. People's biggest fear is that right now, this current situation, the Mujahideen, the resistance, they are going to leave. That's what most people keep saying to me. Look, we're still scared because we're afraid that Bashar is going to come back and you guys are going to leave, right? Another interesting fear that I've heard is obviously people worried about Israel coming in, okay? And then as you go up a layer, of course, people are questioning, okay, what kind of deals have been made? Has concessions been made? It somewhat seems almost too good to be true. And yeah, I mean, that is a bit worrying,
But do any Syrians espouse those views? From the observations and exchanges you've had since liberation, have you spoken to any Syrians that are like, yeah, things happened quite quick, seems too good to be true? Were there any external influences? I'm not talking about the anti-imperialists. I'm not talking about the Assadists outside of Syria. I'm talking about Syrians themselves.
Like I said, it depends what circles. If you're talking to intellectuals, then yeah, of course.
Okay.
You could say the professional type of society here, teachers, lawyers, doctors, yeah, of course they espouse some of those views. Anyone who's, got any background or, level of education would look at the current situation and would be foolish to think that no deals have been made. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing, If deals have been made and they're positive for the people here in Syria and positive for the Muslims and the Islamic project, then alhamdulillah.
That's a very pragmatic take. Tox has changed over the years, huh?
I don't think I was. I don't think I was ever very hardline like that.
Okay,
I think.
Would you say you've become a bit more pragmatic in terms of how geopolitics works in the modern day?
I think it comes with experience, bro. I think a lot of people have a utopic view of how things should be, but our history is marred with controversies, deals being made, treachery, all these kind of stuff. So I think it's important to be a realist. I think it's important to look at things and see how we can improve the state of our Muslim countries and the Muslim world in stages. I think a lot of brothers in the West, in certain jama'at, certain groups, they think that it's going to go from 0 to 100 because they live in the West, they're institutionalized. They don't have an understanding of how many hundreds of years it's taken for some of these institutions to be built, and that tarbiyah, that wiring of a community to exist. So we were just having a conversation a little while back. There's many things that for us our wiring would make us ask certain questions. That becomes the default for us. Whereas for other people, like for example, there's a Uyghur community here, the Turkistanis. Now they came here to fight and they've been a part of the liberation. When you speak to them about torture, okay, within, you could say, some of the prisons of some of the factions here, they say to you, a wheel? You got put in a wheel and hit on your legs? That's nothing for them. That's Jannah for us. They're saying we didn't have hijab, our women are forced to drink alcohol, no beards, no Quran, masjids. Their reality is very different. So the way that they're wired, generationally, they're not asking the same questions. Whereas us, we're kind of quite privileged. And we come from a place where, you see a police officer.
What's your badge number?
What's your badge number? So it's very different. It takes time for you to adjust to that. And obviously our criterion, of course, is Islam. I'm not saying to people, lower your standards. I'm not saying that. Our criterion is Islam, but we have to understand that sometimes when you bring ideas, the people have to be ready for them to accept that. And I think that the Muslim world has to go through a process. And I think, inshallah, what's happening now in Sham, we're hopeful that that's going to be the beginning of that. I don't believe that this stage is that what people are looking for. If they have, higher level of justice and Islamic enterprise or society, but it's certainly moving in the right direction, inshallah.
We both spoke at the Syria, the Blessed Revolution conference yesterday. And if you speak to most, if not all, the contributors yesterday, they would all agree, like ourselves, that Syria was unique in terms of its uprising, the undercurrents, the sentiments. So what I found with Syria, because it was born out of the Arab Spring, we had Ben Ali in Tunisia, we had Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, Gaddafi in Libya, Bashar in Syria, Ali Abdullah Saleh in Yemen, and then we had the Bahraini uprising, which is predominantly Shi'i, against the Khalifa monarchy. Of those 6-7 uprisings, if you speak to some people, they'll say, yes, it is a blessed revolution because there was a strong Islamic undercurrent from the get-go, right? That wasn't necessarily the case in the other places. There was a mix, seculars, liberals, Muslims, Islamists, all different people played a different role. For example, Ikhwan al-Muslimin joined the Egyptian revolution very late. Very late.
Yeah.
Tunisia was a mix of secularists and liberals and Islamists. Whereas Syria, if you speak to some people, they're like, nah, this was Islamic from the get-go. Whereas others would say, no, this is actually the anti-blessed revolution because of how many people were involved, how many external entities were involved. You had Turkey involved, you had Iran, Hezbollah, you had Qatar, you had the UAE, you had Saudi, you had
Russia.
America, you had Russia, you had... Bro, there were so many different players. It was literally 5D chess in a sham. Do you believe that has some kudos or credit to that argument?
I think mine is obviously with the first bunch, that obviously it's a blessed revolution, and the reason for that is it's Rabbani, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way that this place is it's blessed, the Prophet ﷺ spoke about this. That enchantment exists. We see it today. We see it, we live it, right?
Why didn't foreigners go to Egypt, or not as many, nowhere as close to us in Libya or Tunisia or Yemen?
Of course, we can't disregard the Islamic narrative, the rich Islamic history connected to this place. I mean, that's a major draw for so many people. Like for me, if you ask me now, it's a strange question, where would I like to die? I'd say one of the places I'd love to die is Bilad al-Sham. One of the hadith talks about if you're dying in, for example, Medina or Mecca, these places are places as a Muslim, you'd be happy to know, alhamdulillah, I died in Bilad al-Sham. Or I would anyway. And I think the enigma of it, many of these places that are prophesied, like Ghouta, which is close to us, some of the final battles are going to be here, Dabik. You've got also just the rich history in terms of the futuhat that happened here, the Sahaba that walked here. You've got Yahya alayhi salam's, they say John the Baptist for the Christians, head is supposed to be here in Masjid al-Umawi. You've got Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi buried here. You've got Nuruddin Zinki buried here. You've got Khalid bin Walid. You've got even for the Shia, Sayyidina Zainab. So it's one of those places where, because it has that rich history, it's a melting pot of civilizations.
That for sure it is.
And for that reason, it's going to be no different today. That's why all of these people are going to be involved. If we think now that in our time, it's just going to be the Syrians rising up against Bashar, who put Bashar there in the first place, right? There was external factors, and that's always going to be the case. So I don't think we should look at that and be like, that makes it a non-blessed revolution. No, that the fact that with all of that, the people are able to have some sense of agency is amazing. And like you said, it did start as an Islamic revolution. Okay,
from very early on.
One of the first chants was Hiya lillah, Hiya lillah. This is for Allah, this is for Allah, right? So, and that was the natural fitrah of the people. Nobody told them to say that. Nobody. It was very organic, right? Alongside other chants. So, alhamdulillah, bro. That's one thing that people can't take away from it. I mean, many secular groups, many groups funded by the West tried to come and found themselves and spread their ideas and build some kind of factions, groups, and none of them transpired. None of them came to fruition.
Now let's bring it a bit closer to home, right? Now, you're officially stateless, and one of the, if not one of the main reason was of an alleged affiliation of yours to the former group of Hayat Tahrir Sham, right?
Yeah.
Now, considering that many Western governments are debating whether or not to deprescribe HTS, do you think that could set a legal precedent for you to appeal your revocation?
Potentially. I mean, of course, I'm one of the people that believe that you should fight for every single right. I mean, I don't want to come back to the UK. It's not the be all and the end all for me. It's nice to be able to have a passport and to be able to travel and be privileged. But ultimately, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. So if I do see an opportunity, if our legal team, if Cage and some of the other people that we work with, human rights organizations, see that we can potentially do something like this, yeah, I think that would be a good step, because it's important for us to try and let people know that, look, we fought a just cause, we fought for a just cause. I think that's really, really important. And people, especially Brits, died for it. You know, one of them, Dr.
Abbas Khan.
I'm saying Doctor like Syrian. Dr. Abbas Khan, he was one of them. You know, subhanAllah, his anniversary of his death, I think, is actually coming up. What's the date? The 16th. SubhanAllah, yesterday, SubhanAllah. So, you know, people came here to help, and they you know, may Allah accept them as shuhada, were killed by this brutal regime.
I mean, you also were arrested by HTS, and you spent some time in prison. There was a lot of noise about that and protests. But very recently, you released a video about 11 positive things.
That Qasim, boy, it's 11, not 10.
Yeah, I did. Was that a genuine kind of observation, or are you seeking a Syrian passport once they get to power?
I think some people may think that, but my thing is, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and at the end of the day, I want the ummah to win. Like, for me, the goal is I want the ummah to win. And so what I do is not to win favor of any group or any person. That's not the goal. The goal is I want to tell people, like, if my brothers are doing wrong, then I want to be in a position where I advise them. If I have to call them out, I'll call them out, even if that has negative repercussions. But if they do good, I also want to be the person that's like, you know what, brothers? You lot smashed it, man. Do you know what I mean? You know what? I'm with you on this. And I think that's how we should be. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَتَعَاوِنُوا بِالْبِرِّ وَتَقْوَى. You know, you should enjoin in goodness and piety, and don't enjoin in evil. And, you know, so yes, there's certain things that I disagree with them on policy. And I feel also in those areas that they're making progress. Is it perfect? No, it's not.
Will it ever be perfect? Can there ever be perfection in terms of governance?
It's difficult, bro. It's very, very difficult. It's not easy. That's not excusing. That doesn't mean that we as Muslims, we should allow our community to do that. I think we have to be more critical of our own people, of our own governments, of our own sheikhs. Look, even if you look in the UK, madness has been happening with Islamic people in the community, you know, pedophilia, molestation, this kind of stuff. And a lot of time, what does the Muslim community do? They brush it under the carpet. I'm not for that. I think that we need to be critical so that we can become better. That's very important. But at the same time, if we do something good, then we need to enjoy that and embrace that. And that's my position with this current situation. Now, no one can take it away from the brothers here. Whether they made a deal, whether they didn't make a deal, we're sitting in Damascus, bro. We are sitting in Damascus. Now, you know, the Ahl Sunnah, the people of Sunnah here, will not be brutalized, will not be oppressed just for the beliefs that they hold. And that's big, bro. That's big.
You know, I don't want to sound like a song on repeat, but this entire trip has been a bit ajeeb for me because I've never been on an assignment or had an interview or a podcast where we discuss such a popular prescribed group. But the Syrians don't see it like that. I'm finding it hard pressed, even someone to pull me aside and say, "Nah, I have concerns about Julani, or I have concerns about the rebel factions, particularly HTS or others that may share similar ideological leanings, but I can't find it, Tox." And that makes it a bit mad because in the UK and in the US and in the UN, they're a prescribed group.
Okay, I mean, I don't want to whitewash this situation. Like the reality is the reason why you're not going to find those voices is because we're in the Arab world, bro. People are not wired that way. The default for people is that when a new ruler comes in, we're going to say good things.
Yeah.
And you will generally hear that the opposition, their voices will quieten, right? Because
Or join the bandwagon.
Or join the bandwagon. It happens, bro. Those voices, you will not hear them at this time. Part of that is because, like I said, people are fearful that they'll face repercussions, but also other people have an Islamic justification for that, where they're saying that, look, we need to have husn dhan. Alhamdulillah, Allah's given, blessings. Allah's made these futuhat, these victories come. So now we need to give it a chance, and that's what I think that's how we should be as Muslims, we don't want to be like madkhalis. Okay, I know some people are not going to be happy about me using that terminology, but that's the current classification and terminology that's used.
Apolitical quietists who defend tyranny and injustice.
Yeah, so that means we cannot speak out against the ruler at all.
At all.
In any way, shape or form. And we also don't want to be those people on the other extreme where we're never happy with any ruler and we have this utopic image in our mind that everything's going to be perfect. We can't be like that. We need to be somewhere in the middle where, like I said, you see the good things, you help and support, and you pat people on the back and you tell them they've done good when they've done good. And when things are going wrong, we need to try and have systems, lobbies, pressure groups, so that we can push our brothers and sisters to make the right choices.
Do you think, from sources I've spoken to, and I know you've got similar sources directly, a lot of the rebel factions are kind of coming under the umbrella of the existing transitional government, with exception to maybe the YPG, Kurds. They seem to be the most prominent of the groups that still seem to not have kind of come under this rebel offensive and transitional government leadership, meaning they're still holding out in their areas. There might still be pockets of opposition in Latakia, but it appears that people are slowly coming to becoming united. Otherwise, there wouldn't be conversations about disarming yourselves, creating a national army. Are people coming together in terms of the rebel factions, in terms of the different factions? And
I think it's early stages, bro. I think there is definitely talks. This is not something that hasn't happened before in the Syrian revolution.
It's not a revolution anymore.
Yeah.
Now the conversation is, as per Ahmad Shara himself, is that now it's a case of national unification. Now it's a case of bringing the country together. Or to quote him exactly, now it's about the dawla, right? Bringing the state together.
Yeah.
And different factions. Do you think that they're going to become, the rebel factions are going to basically become the Syrian army?
It's possible, but up until now, so you mentioned a lot of things about rebels coming together, but when you're still going to the north, to Turkish territories right now, there's still checkpoints. You've got HTS checkpoints, and you've got Syrian National Army checkpoints, which are, Turkish-backed forces. So that's still very visibly present. So are they having talks? This is what we hear. But there's also people that are disgruntled. Again, this idea of unity being binary and everybody being happy, I don't think it's like that, and I don't think in reality it will be like that. We may very well see infighting, and that doesn't mean that everything that's not an ideal situation, but it also doesn't mean that, it's how can I say, everything's gone to bits, because we know very well that people like Salahuddin al-Ayyubi had to fight many Muslim groups in order to consolidate the Muslim lands. And people look at the liberation of Al-Aqsa, they don't look at what, certain moves and things that preceded that. So I'm not justifying that. I'm not saying, HTS should go out and fight everyone and other groups should fight. To be honest, I'm very against all of the infighting. None of us wants, Muslim groups to be fighting each other. But that's a possible reality in the near future.
I mean, let's hope that's not the case, because that could potentially feed into that kind of predominant narrative that has been spread by the critics of the Syrian revolutions, that always can become another Libya, always can become another Iraq. I just don't think it's fair to put the Syrian people down before they've even had a chance to come together.
Yeah, I agree. I think the semblance, the feeling now is very much one of unity. Even a lot of the big SNA leaders have been here in Damascus, sitting with Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, being in Aleppo. It feels very different. But what that's going to translate as on paper, are the Turkish-controlled buffer zones, are they going to dissolve and come as part of this? We're still yet to see that. So it's early days, bro. It's early days. And on the whole, it's very positive. But there's a lot of things that need to happen. And, we hope for the best. There's a real probability that a lot of things that are being said by the leader, the current, de facto leader, they may not transpire. And that's why I'm very much a person that believes in checks and balances. But how to build that within the system is another topic.
But it'd be at least fair to say that there is a huge task at hand with the transitional government.
100%. I mean, a lot of people, one of the things that people are saying is, why they're not doing nothing? Look at Israel. Look what Israel's doing, taking land. And what. They haven't even consolidated what they got right now.
Well, that's exactly what was said in today's closed meeting, which I attended with Mr. Ahmed.
I mean, it's a fair question. Okay, it's a fair question. People have the right to ask that question. But at the same time, if you understand the reality, they've just taken large swathes of territory. There's been a capitulation, decimation of the Syrian Arab army. The Syrian Arab army was made up of conscripts, people who were forced to go to the military. How many people do you meet today daily that are like, my son was forced, I've been paying thousands of dollars to make sure my son didn't go to the military. Yeah. Other people now who were like, I faked the injury so I didn't have to go. Other people now that were in the military.
40, 50-year-olds.
Yeah, 40, 50-year-olds, that were forced to go in the military. So there was this ragtag of people that didn't even want to fight for this regime. And then now, even one of the good moves that I spoke about in the 11 points was that as this offensive was going on, the military operations room, they gave people a chance. They said, listen, if you put down your weapons, even if you fought us man to man and you've been in the situation, we'll give you amnesty. I personally think that was a very good move because it stopped a lot of bloodshed. Okay? And what it did was, a lot of these people, their heart wasn't in it. They didn't want to fight for Bashar, this regime, because they never believed in it and they knew the brutality and they knew what it was. So if you could win a fight without having to, draw blood, that's smart. That's smart. We shouldn't be bloodthirsty people. Does that mean now people that are criminals, that were shabiha, that were generals, that did massacres like Tadaman, like where we visited, that they shouldn't be, brought to account? Hell yeah, they should be brought to account. And that's what they've said. Now, will that transpire? Allah knows best. Even now, up until today, Bashar apparently came out with a statement saying that he was in Damascus all this time. Now, if that's true, I don't know how I feel about that. That would be a travesty if he was being protected here in Damascus all this time. To be honest, I would.
Did he say that?
That's what he said. That's what he said. I was here till the very end. I believe that if Americans believe in capital punishment, we as Muslims also believe in capital punishment. People like Bashar al-Assad, who is a war criminal, yeah, he should definitely face the death penalty and be held to account.
Less about the Syrian revolution, less about the challenges ahead. I want to bring this conversation to a close and make it more about you, my brother. Do you miss home? As in, I mean, I know it's not your home anymore, but do you miss Britain?
Of course, Britain, the UK will always be a part of me. I was born and brought up there. As much as, my mates, they have banter and they say, why are you saying you're a Brit? You're not even a Brit anymore. You know what I mean? But, yeah, of course, I mean, there's certain things, but I think, bro, I've been out here a long time, bro. And
how many years to be exact?
It's been 13 years now. And to be honest, bro, even before I came here, working in Gaza and Palestine, the things that I've seen, it's not allowed for me to live a normal life, bro. It's not allowed. I would never, inshallah ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep me steadfast, but I would never go live, inshallah, in a place where there is comfort, where there is, I don't want to be in that position. I want to, if everything becomes good here, I want to go to a place, inshallah, where the ummah needs me. And that's how I want to live out my days. That's what I see. So the question of going back, do I miss it? Yeah, I miss my mum, miss my dad, miss my family. Alhamdulillah, they've been able to come out here. Maybe in the near future, they're going to be able to come out here. But sure. I want to be in a place where I'm helping the Muslims and be in the Muslim lands, because that's what my identity is. My identity is not a British Pakistani. My identity is Muslim first. You know how they say America first? I'm Muslim first, bro. And I want the Muslims to win.
Alhamdulillah. So you've got all these projects going on and you're talking about that there is a level of shortcoming or a blind spot or something missing within the charity sector, whereby you're just giving food boxes, or as you famously say, applying a plaster on an open wound. Yeah. So what can the charity sector and the humanitarian sector do to not continuously perpetuate that generationally?
I think one of the problems with most charities is that they're third-party charities. So what does that mean? They are fundraising charities. They don't actually implement the projects themselves. They're not embedded with the communities. So what they do is they find a partner who can give them good media, something that looks good on the outside, and they will basically, as long as they have their due diligence, they've got their paperwork in check, and they're getting good media, they're happy to hand over those funds. And that's really problematic.
What's the alternative then?
The alternative is that they build teams, embed inside those communities, and have, you could say, infrastructure and systems. I'll give you an example.
That's resource heavy, Tox.
But that's the work that needs to be done.
That's a big ask.
It's not a big ask. That's what needs to be done. It's like saying now, you wouldn't do this with your child. So for example now, if you had a child and you wanted to send them to a school for education, you're not going to send them to a school just because it looks good. You're going to make sure that you do all the checks. You're going to make sure that I know that this school has the teachers that are to a certain standard. They're in line with my way of thinking. And I'm not going to give a damn about the media. I'm going to care about when my child finishes this school, they are going to be, able to have a successful life. And what we're having with a lot of charities is they'll find charities that are paper charities. I call them paper charities because they're just a fabrication. They look very nice on the outside. And you have to understand it's a war zone. You have opportunists. It's not that hard to get a group of children, put them in the room, show that you're doing some Quran classes, and make a nice video.
And put a couple of banners up and stuff. But it gives work and revenue to partners on the ground who also need income and help and assistance, no?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, what does partners on the ground mean?
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. This is how I've understood it, right? You have a UK registered charity. They will raise funds, either generic funds or campaign project-specific funds, right?
Yeah.
They may not have the resources or the logistics or the manpower or the influence or the presence on the ground to deliver those themselves directly. Why is it such a problem to just link up with someone in that country and say, look, we've got this much money, can you deliver X, Y, and Z?
Because what they're not factoring for is number one, is that partner ahlan? Are they qualified to do that service?
You do due diligence.
Okay.
You do due diligence.
So due diligence obviously has layers. Okay, that's number one. Number two, also many of those partners on the ground are subject to factors, some of them being exploitation. Whereas if you're an external organization that is entrenched in that community, you're not subject to those same, how can I say, them same issues. So for example now, if you're in a country, and this is something that's happened in Syria, certain militias or certain groups will say, we're going to give you land, you have to build on that land, and you're going to hand the houses over to us. And many charities in the UK have done that. And that's completely haram. The ownership of those homes does not go to the beneficiaries.
That's crazy.
That's the reality, bro.
You tell me that's happening.
That's happening, and it's happened. It's happened. So what I'm saying to you is, the reason why that happens is, you cannot blame that partner. That partner group is just working with what's there. But there are certain charities, and I split them into three. So you've got those fundraising charities that are in countries like the UK, developed countries. You've got transit charities, which are normally based in countries that are bordering the country where there's an issue, like Turkey for Syria,
Bangladesh with
Rohingya, etc., Pakistan for Afghanistan, etc., etc. And then you have the implementation partners or charities. Now, very few charities are all of them. They're able to do the fundraising, the transit, and the implementation.
Okay.
I'll say I was very critical of Islamic Relief, but today I see that Islamic Relief is a proper charity.
I get that, but they also do some other bookie stuff.
They do. I'm not talking about that. But what I'm saying is, when an earthquake happened in Syria, Islamic Relief and us were some of the only teams that were able to mobilize. You would have seen certain charities that were doing stuff from the UK in Syria, but that was us doing that work for them.
Not necessarily their teams on the ground themselves.
That's not them. That's not their teams. So,
but I still don't understand. B, I don't mean to pick an argument with you, even though when we do argue, it's actually quite entertaining. But what is wrong with that? If they don't have the capacity to deliver it.
Okay, so let me tell you why they don't have the capacity. Because what happens is, it becomes a business. So what happens is, instead of a charity focusing on one country or two countries or three countries, what ends up happening is, we work in 120 countries and we can deliver everywhere, but you're not helping. If you don't have the capacity, you work in one. As a Muslim, if we work with itqan and we work in one place properly, is better than working in 120 countries and just giving out food boxes. All you're doing is primary relief. You're not doing anything else.
Others may disagree with you.
They may disagree with me.
Because they may turn around and say to you, well, we're trying to spread out the khair and we're trying to help Muslims or those in need everywhere, more countries, as opposed to focusing on just one.
Yeah, but all that they're doing is primary relief. And primary relief is not a solution for the ummah.
This is true.
This is where we need, if we look at the majority of the smaller charities, the majority of the charities in the UK, and we were to do a statistical survey of the work that they do, if you were to draw like a pie chart, what you would see is the majority of their work is in the primary relief sector, which is perishables, food, tents, blankets, all this kind of stuff. People are asking the question, 13 years on, why are people still in tents? Why are we still buying tents in Syria? Ask yourself that question. Do you understand? Syria hasn't seen a lack of money coming in. It's seen gross mismanagement. It's seen exploitation of communities. I'll give you an example now. You're giving money to an orphan. Most people don't know that a lot of the time that money doesn't reach that orphan. Why? Not because the charity is not giving it to the family, but that sister herself, she may have other family members who are taking that. She may have psychological issues where, for example, she's using it to buy antidepressants, etc. So that child's not benefiting. Whereas our, you could say, involvement is far deeper than that. When we give a sponsorship to an orphan, there's a whole education program attached to that. There's a you could say a sports program attached to that, martial arts, horse riding, and then the mother also has psychological sports. There's follow-up of their schooling. It's so much more, and you can only do that by being in those countries. This is why I like Spot. When I look at their work, you can see it's real.
Brother Abu Bakr
Brother Abu Bakr and those guys. Now I'm not benefiting from their project. From what I can see from the outside, from my experience, I can see that that's a real project. Whereas most charities, what do you have? We work in 120 countries. As soon as a crisis happens, they're already doing a fundraiser for so-and-so country. And this happened in Gaza. So many charities were not even working in Gaza and they're fundraising for Gaza. Millions of dollars are just sitting in bank accounts when these charities don't even have the capacity to implement it. And then what happens is, while the crisis is happening, they're searching for a partner. Isn't that a travesty?
Yeah, but I guess from a Sharia, I agree. I agree with you.
You're raising money and you're raising money and then you're going to work out how to spend it afterwards when you don't even have the capacity to do that.
So what pieces of advice would you give to charities who operate like that?
I would say to them, first of all, yes, we all have to do primary relief, but you need to work into education, training and development, enterprise projects, helping people to stand on their own 2 feet. That should be infrastructure. A lot of Muslim countries, like one of the questions I would tell people who are watching this to ask is, tell me what infrastructure you've built in countries. Tell me what institutes you run. Tell me where your offices are in a certain country. Tell me how many staff you have in a certain country.
That work for this exact
that work
same
for
charity?
You.
Okay.
Yeah, that work for you.
Okay.
How many warehouses do you have? Like now we have warehouses in Syria. We have a fleet of vehicles, right? I even have qualms with the 100% donation policy. That's another topic. I have qualms with it. And inshallah, I'm going to do a series talking about this.
Some of them who say that is they keep the gift aid and they give the 100%, no?
There are exceptions that do that, and they can do that well, but they're the minority. The majority of people that are claiming that they're doing 100% donation, what that does is that actually keeps them only doing primary relief. That's what it does.
Because of that model that they follow.
So it's a problem. It's a marketing tool where we say we're doing 100% donation, and what that makes us end up doing is, right, we need to find a partner, we need to give them this stuff. So it's a play on words. So like, we have a lot of charities that work with us that they say they're 100% donation, right? So what do? They give us all the donations. Yeah, they do. But obviously, we have vehicles, we have costs, we have staff. And Shar'an, Islamically, the Sharia, even zakat, is not 100% donation. One of the divisions of zakat is amalin ali.
So,
do you understand? So obviously, that can be exploited. We've had people that, start taking crazy amounts and start going crazy. But we can't be the other extreme again where we're saying every single penny is going to get to the person. That's just not realistic. It's not realistic at all.
Masculinity and fear. Because I know...
Don't get me started on masculinity and fear, bro.
Because I know you weren't a big fan, or you're not a big fan of some du'at and Islamic activists engaging in MMA and boxing and call-outs. You weren't too happy with me calling out Tommy Robinson for a punch-up, Hijab, recent MMA fight, Hamza's box fight. I know you're not really feeling that flex.
Yeah, I just think that it's problematic. I think brothers are doing it because they have an inferiority complex. Honestly, I think inherently as a man...
Why can't it not just be that we can't necessarily do what others are doing in other countries?
That's the point. Because we can't do what others are doing in other countries, what we're doing is we're trying to fill that void with something else and trying to project, make ourselves feel better.
So what do you want man to do then? If you don't want us to go gym and train hard and box up right-wing Zionists, why?
What I'm saying is train hard.
Okay, why?
Train hard, wrestle, do those things. But what I'm saying is when you start doing this thing where you're doing shows, and my issue is not so much, if you're doing these Islamic shows between brothers and that kind of stuff, that's fine. But then when it comes to a point where I'm calling out someone who's a protagonist of Islam, and I feel by beating him in an MMA fight that now I've had some victory for the ummah, that's theatrics, bro. That's gladiator. That's a movie, bro.
Okay, so
that's not real life. Someone that makes kufr and is cursing the Prophet ﷺ, you think by getting in an MMA ring and beating him, you done something for the ummah.
How? Come on, Tox.
How does that work?
I call out Tommy Robinson because he curses the Prophet ﷺ, he curses our women, he curses the Quran every single day. He justifies the genocide against our brothers and sisters, the killing of babies. What is wrong with calling him out to a fight where all proceeds will go to charity, whereby my aura will be covered, there's no ring girls, and I will box the rascal out of him. What's wrong with that?
What I'm saying is, that's not like the problem with that is that's a show.
Okay, fine. So is there any other way of doing it which wouldn't be a show then? If there wasn't a poster, if there wasn't a PPV?
There may be, but
No, by the way, I just want to make it clear for legal purposes, we're merely discussing the ethical point of
there may be, but I might get you shut down, bro.
No, okay, but look, okay, fine. So what's the main issue? Do you have an issue because it's Islamic figures and du'at, or is it the kind of showy aspect to it? What is it?
So it's connected, isn't it, bro? At the end of the day, one of the things that is important, that there's a real void in the dawah scene. And that's talking about jihad. That's talking about struggling for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Now, maybe with Syria, we may be able to talk about it. I famously came on Channel 4 and did the jihad debate with, what was his name? He was a Zionist MP. And I came and I said that jihad in Syria is justified. Why? Because it's a just cause. Fighting against this tyrant, oppressive regime, and Britain was funding the rebels at that time.
Elements of the rebels
Is not something illegal, it's not something bad, because this person Bashar is a terrorist, right? And in that same conversation, I said to the MP that there's one rule for Zionists who go and fight in the IDF military, who go and serve in that army and commit war crimes and then come back to the UK, and there's another rule for Muslims. So my thing is that, bringing it back to what we were talking about, is that this thing of, it's theatrics, bro. It's not la'iq for du'at, people of knowledge, people who have to be, it's very showbiz, bro.
Okay, fine. So to bring it to a close, in the same way that you gave some advisory points to the charity sector, what would be your advisory points to those Muslim public figures who want to engage in charity fights where the aura is covered, where there's no ring girls, where there's no music, and they're even having a fair fight with legal rules in a licensed environment, and or the person that they're boxing up or going to twist up is genuinely an opponent and a hater of Islam or Muslims, whereby they justify the oppression and the bloodshed of Muslims? What advice would you give to them? What should they be doing instead?
My advice to them is that they need to visit conflict zones of the Muslims. That's what my advice for them is. That if you don't go, like, you can be courageous. It's easy to be courageous when there's rules and you're not gonna face risks. That's the whole point. The whole point is, I'm giving it like I'm a big man, but when it comes to the real battles of the ummah, I'm not willing to come to Syria. I said this to you, bro, and I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to dishearten people, but there's many brothers that for 13 years we've been saying, brothers, come to Syria, come to Syria, come to Syria. You need to come. The ummah needs you, the ummah needs you. And now that the victory has come, everybody wants to come.
But it's a victory for the ummah.
The victory is for the ummah.
So why can't the ummah come here?
But what I'm saying is, when bombs and bullets were raining on the brothers, where were those men? Where were these? Do you understand what I'm saying?
They were scared of getting their citizenship.
So that's the problem.
They were scared of getting lifted.
So they're good. So those du'at, those people, they're good for theatrics. But when those du'at, when Islamic knowledge was needed in these areas, they were not here. They were not present. And that's problematic. Do you understand what I'm saying? And yes, it is a risk. Yes, it is a risk. But that's what struggling fi sabilillah is, bro. It's a risk. Do you understand?
You just cut differently, akhi. You're built differently, bruv.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us sincerity, bro.
Ameen, ya Rab.
I don't like talking about these topics because sometimes then people think that, you're arrogant and, look how you're going on and, you're kind of disregarding other good work that people do. I'm not saying that. I want people to understand that there's a lot of brothers that are doing good work in the da'wah field, and they should do that. But when it comes to this topic of masculinity and people creating a false kind of bravado, I think it's problematic. especially when you come on and, there has been kind of a speech that's been used that, people going on talk shows and then, done jihad by going on a talk show. Nah, you didn't, bro. You didn't. Do you understand? And then even condemnations of those people that are on the front lines of the ummah, that's very problematic. I call that, what did they call it? Delusions of grandeur.
Delusions of grandeur.
Delusions of grandeur, yani. It's mad.
Okay, fine. But if you go on a TV show, which is going to be viewed by millions, to defend Islam, to defend Muslims,
do that.
But
then don't condemn.
Okay, let's forget about the condemnation, but why can that not be struggling for the sake of Allah?
It can, but it's still not on the same level as someone who is risking everything. When you're going on a talk show to talk, and the hadith itself says it, the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, what does it say? Man ra'a munkarin.
Hand, speech, heart.
Right. So you can't compare someone that's doing speech to someone that's physically doing something.
But the speech is there though.
It's there, but it's not on the same level. And that's the problem. The problem is that some of these people, they will give this illusion that what they're doing is better than other people. And that's where it becomes problematic. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I'm just kindly appealing to you that that's just the scope of what brothers and du'at and some can do, that they can just come on a show, or them defending Islam or Muslims in a particular...
Can you imagine Khalid bin Walid? You went to the grave, bro. Can you imagine Khalid bin Walid, while the battles were raging in the Ummah, he was in Makkah saying, guys, you know what? There's some mushriks here that are cursing the Prophet. You know what? I'm going to offer you out to a wrestling match, and we're going to have rules. And you know what? It's going to be... What would the Sahaba on the front line said about these guys? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's
there were poets in Medina that were defending the honor of the Prophet.
Yeah, but they were poets, bro. There's levels to this game, bro.
Okay. Then maybe the mandem are not on that level.
But they need to be. That's the point, isn't it? That's why we're in the decadence that we are, because unfortunately, sacrifice is not being made. That's the key word, bro. And that's why I don't want to be like, even this Damascus is scary for me, bro. Wallah.
You're saying that to me, right?
It's dunya. Look at this, bro. This is like it's like my heart is, you know what I mean? People have said to me, like, it's funny as well. People say, Tox lives a lavish life and this and that, whatever. But, we try and make zuhad where we can, man. And yeah, I live a better life than people that are living in refugee camps. But we don't want dunya to like, and that can even mean our wives, our children. That can become a fitna for us, bro. Wallahi, it can become a fitna for us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not let the love of this dunya, seep into our hearts, bro.
On that note, it was an absolute honor having you on eventually after 4 years, doing it in person, doing it in Damascus. I think it was a special episode, bro.
Jazakallah khair. After the controversial people in the comments they're gonna probably slate me.
No, because it was all like, it's like Syria, okay, revolution, okay, HTS, okay, stateless, okay, charity sector, boom. If you ended with the madness. But alhamdulillah, I enjoyed it, brother.
All right, bro.
And I hope this is the first of many visits that we can have in
And obviously, I thank you for coming, bro. Wallahi, even now, it's still dangerous. There's still people that are waiting for. People I've spoken to, and they're like, when Damascus airport opens, then I'll come. I'm not even gonna bother trying to come from Lebanon and Beirut and venture my way in and, checkpoints and that. No. Damascus airport opens, everything's good, then I'm coming.
Khair, inshallah, man. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instill amongst the men of this ummah the belief of sacrifice.
Ameen.
And to be able to aspire to the level where you can change things with your hands if you have the means to do so. Ameen, ya Rab. Love my broski.
Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fiqh, Habib. Brothers and sisters and friends, I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed this very special episode of the Blood Brothers podcast. Do remember to click subscribe, follow, leave a comment. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.